Today's workshop obviously is on playfulness. Many of you, or most of you, would have seen my talk on the summit. And yeah, today I basically want to kind of go through a Feldenkrais lesson and introduce some of the concepts that I talked about on the summit. For some of you, the Feldenkrais method will be a new experience. For some of you, it will be something that you've done many times. So in some way, I need to present the material in such a way that's accessible to both sets of people that have never done it before and people that have done it many times. So that kind of poses an interesting challenge. And I think it encourages me to be playful as well. So that's a good thing. So just initially to kind of go through, and it was great to hear from all of you. It's lovely to hear how many people have been interested in this subject. And I would imagine that this is because all of us in some way feel a pull or a necessity to kind of have an easier, more playful attitude to life. And I think that, you know, kind of some of the things that I was trying to convey in my talk on the summit is that there are many situations and experiences in life that can close ourselves or cause us to close ourselves or shut down in some way. And for myself, it was definitely a process of learning that it was safe to become playful again. And I don't kind of want to echo, you know, I don't want to go into too much of what I was talking about on the summit, but just to kind of emphasize that there is an element of safety involved in this process. If you would like to feel more playful in yourself, in some way you need to find a route to feeling safe. And that sense of safety giving you an opportunity to relax and feel more comfortable. And then naturally your playfulness will kind of come to the surface. So hopefully that's something that will happen through the workshop today, or even it will begin a process, or you have already begun a process in that respect. So just maybe I'll just convey a little story that I heard in relation to this. And it's about a bird of prey that was injured and it was taken into a bird shelter. And I can't remember exactly which bird of prey it was, but, you know, obviously a beautiful animal is meant to be soaring in the clouds, you know, kind of living its best life. But this animal obviously either got hurt or was injured by something, and it had to be taken into a shelter. And now this bird was really kind of wound up. It was really stressed in itself, and it didn't have the ability to kind of relax and begin to self-regulate. So what the owner of the shelter, the bird shelter, did is he had to go through a process of familiarizing himself with the bird. So in order for the bird to accept the food from the person, the bird had to feel safe initially. That process, essentially, the owner of the bird shelter had to sit in the pen through about 2 weeks worth of day and night with the bird. So he had to like literally go into the same enclosure, put himself in there and just sit there and be there throughout that whole period until the bird of prey kind of really got some sense that the person that he wanted to interact with was safe. And I think that from my own experience, that it takes many opportunities to feel safe in order for playfulness to develop. So I just want to kind of, you know, relay that story to you and, you know, give you an opportunity to find safety in yourself again and again and again as a way of developing playfulness, or, you know, as a way of letting your natural playfulness come to the surface. Okay, so all of that said, the three things that I talked about in the summit, one was gentleness, curiosity, and exploration. And lastly, a removal of the fear of failure. So those are things that we're going to be looking at as we go through the lesson today. But firstly, I want to, what I want you to do is when we come back down to the floor, we're going to begin a lesson. But my first point is how you develop a relationship with yourself. So obviously when you come to the floor, maybe you're going to close your eyes or you're going to sit there and you'll have an opportunity to feel into yourself, to do some movements. And I'm sitting maybe in a different country or at least on the other side of a computer screen. And I'm not there to kind of, manage your own relationship with yourself. So the first thing that I want to encourage you to do is just to really maybe even have a word with yourself initially and say I'm going to take responsibility for my own sense of safety, for my own sense of comfort. And I'm not going to do anything that doesn't feel nice, that challenges my sense of safety, or that takes me into a feeling of strain or pain. So that is the initial, maybe it's a disclaimer. I really encourage you to think about that because it's so easy when we get into a movement process to become goal-oriented and try and achieve the thing and stop listening to ourselves. So I'd really encourage you to kind of keep that as an initial premise. I think we're just going to start at this point. So what I'd like you to do is come down to lie on your back, please. Yeah, so thank you, chat, for people in the chat have responded to a couple of people's questions. So when you lie on your back, and I'll give everyone a moment to do that. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is that there's plenty of time. There's plenty of time and there's really no sense of rush. So sometimes we get into these processes and we feel like we want to achieve something, but I'm going to encourage you just to really stay in a exploratory, curious, experimentary state where you just, you're not thinking about an end result and you're not thinking, I want to get here by the end of the lesson, but really just to kind of give yourself time to develop naturally. As I said with the story about the bird, sometimes we need more time than we think. So I'd really encourage you to give yourself time to take the lesson in, to try the movements, but not to rush. Great. So as you lie on your back, maybe the first thing you notice is your breathing. When we come down onto the back, we reduce the effect of gravity pulling on our system. So the muscles are working slightly less hard initially. So even that difference between being in sitting or being in standing, or even being alert to a computer screen and just coming down and lying on the back can be a transformative experience. So you can feel for yourself the way that the ground is providing support for you. Maybe you can feel how your head is resting on the floor, how your legs are resting on the floor, how your arms are resting on the floor, and just, feel like what's your sense of support? How supported or how safe do you feel when you lie on the ground? I have a few friends that have some vestibular issues, and occasionally they tell me that even when they lie on the ground, there's, that feeling that things are swimming a little, so that may be the case for some of you as you come down to the ground and you lie on your back, that, there's activity. It's not peaceful straight away. You're not coming straight into a meditative, blissful state. There's some sense of activity. Good. So just in terms of your breathing, can you feel where in your body you sense the movement of your breath? Can you feel if there's any forwards movement in the chest or upwards movement as you breathe in, and backwards movement or downwards movement of the chest as you breathe out? And what about the abdomen? Can you feel any movement of your abdomen? And the relevance of the abdomen in breathing is connected with the diaphragm muscle. And often when we're kind of breathing and the diaphragm muscle is active, there's a regulatory process that's happening that's just bringing your nervous system to a slightly calmer state. So you can notice for yourself whether your breath feels higher or whether it feels lower. And don't put a value judgment on either. It's okay if your breathing is fast. It's okay if your breathing is high, but just notice for yourself where you're at. Good. And then what I'd like you to do is feel down the length of yourself. So from the head, down the length of your spine, into the two legs, and just feel kind of what's your sense of the connection or the connectivity between your head, your back, and your legs. Do they feel like three separate parts of you, or do they feel like one unified whole? And in lying, how tall do you feel? Can you get some sense of the kind of the length, maybe in whatever metric you use in your country, the length from the top of your head right down to your feet? Good. What I'd like you to do is very gently just lift your right heel a little away from the floor. A little away from the floor, and place it back down. And just notice as you lift your right heel away from the floor, do you feel any movement in your back? Do you feel any movement in your head? Does this small movement of lifting the right heel give you some sense that your leg is connected further up your body? And then rest your right heel. And very gently begin to lift the left heel. And notice, do you lift your left heel in a different way to lifting your right heel? Can you feel if your left foot is pointed out to the side or pointed to the ceiling? Does that differ from the right side? What's your sense of effort in lifting up the left leg? Does it feel easier or more difficult? Good. And gently take a rest. Just a couple of times, very lightly, a really small amount. Lift your head a little away from the floor. Tiny, tiny amount. So as if, like this is key at this point. We want to start with the smallest possible movement, so if you want the maximum amount of information back from the process that we're going to go through, the smartest thing to do is to start with the smallest possible movement. So as you lift your head away from the floor, can you do it such a small amount that you could think only a piece of paper is sliding in the space between the floor and your head? So it's such a small movement that it really, it's almost that I couldn't notice you're lifting your head. And one other measure that you can use for yourself as you go through these processes is as you lift your head, is your breathing affected? Can you feel for yourself as you lift your head, Do you hold your breath or do you continue breathing? And if your breath is continuous and smooth and doesn't get disturbed, that's a really good measure that you're not introducing too much effort into the movement. Good, and rest your head, please. Good, and as you rest your head and you rest your legs, what difference do you notice in your breathing? If you notice a change in your breath, that's another indication that maybe you are kind of introducing a little too much effort. And it's something that I kind of want to emphasize really early on, is that we want to use the minimum amount of effort, and that's going to produce the maximum amount of learning. Good. So what I'd like you to do is stand both feet so that you bend your knees and you bring both of your feet to standing. And then let your knees come out to the side so that your feet are kind of, the soles of your feet are more pointing towards each other. And if you like, you can interlace your fingers and place them behind your head. That's not essential, but maybe helpful. And very lightly begin to lift your right heel away from the floor. And as you do so, lift your head away from the floor. Tiny, tiny movement. Again, making it as small, as light as possible. Lifting the right heel away from the floor as you lift the head. And as you do those two movements at opposite ends of yourself, can you feel what's happening in the middle of you? How does your back respond as you lift your head and as you lift your right heel? Can you feel that some parts of your back are pressing more into the ground? Good. And rest your right heel. Take a moment to rest. When you're ready, interlace your hands, place them behind your head. Have your feet in standing, your knees out to the side, and just very gently begin to lift the left heel away from the floor. And see if you can lift the head at the same time. And again, make it a really small movement, really small. So I don't know if some of you would have watched the talk from a gentleman called Roger Russell during the summit talk. It was very interesting. He introduced the theory of the Weber-Fechner Hahnemann rule or cycle. And really what it's to do with is that there's a direct relationship between how much you're doing and how much you sense. So that the more you're doing, the more effort you introduce, the less sensitive you become. So if you can reduce the effort and kind of make a really small movement, there's a clarity of information that's going to come through to you, your brain, your nervous system, and it's really going to help the learning process. Good. Please let your hands down and let your legs down and rest. And notice just from those initial few movements, we've only been doing something for the last 5 or so minutes, but what difference do you notice? Is there a different sense of the way that the floor is providing support to you? Or a different sense of yourself in relation to the floor? And how is your breathing now? Can you feel if there's any change in the length of yourself, all the way down from the top of your head through your back to your legs? And can you also feel how connected those three conceptually separate parts of you are? The head, the back, and the legs. Do they feel more integrated in some way now? Or do they still feel like three separate parts? Good. When you've taken all of that information in, I'd like you to roll to your side and come to sitting. So hopefully that gives you a nice introduction, how we can kind of relate to ourselves in a gentle way, in a kind way. And I'd encourage you to take that with you through the rest of the lesson. So as you come to sitting, I'd like you to notice how you've chosen to sit. Have you chosen to sit with both legs forwards? Is one in front of the other? Have you chosen to sit in side sitting? What option have you picked? For those of you that haven't picked cross-legged, I'd like you to change if possible and sit cross-legged. Good. And with your legs crossed, notice which leg is in front. And is that something that you did consciously, or is that habit? Try just by taking your hands behind you, and resting on the floor, see if you can straighten out your legs and recross them, but in the other way. Straighten out the legs and then just bring them back in and notice. Hi, Susan. Okay, yeah, no problem. So anyone that experienced any sense of pain or discomfort during any part of the lesson so far, or as you go forwards, I would really encourage you to do a lot less. You could even stop and you could use your imagination. And that's something that we're going to do later on in the lesson, in the workshop. So just for the rest of you, notice as you've crossed your legs and uncrossed your legs, why did you pick the first side? Why did you put one in front? Is it obviously more comfortable to you? And if you've tried the other side and they're equally comfortable, or you can't really notice a difference, then just go back to the most comfortable or the first side you picked. Good. Have the because this is where it gets a little complicated. It might be easier for me if I get everyone to do the same. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that just because there's so many people and it's going to be easier to follow. So I'd like you to all have your right foot forwards. I'm sorry if that's the less comfortable side. So with your right foot forwards, what I'd like you to do is take your hand, your right hand. Sorry, I said your right foot forwards. Thank you. Yeah, I caught myself. Your right foot's forwards and your right hand with your palm side up is going to go in between your legs and just slot underneath your right heel. So your right hand, palm side up, is going to go in between your legs and just come underneath your right heel, as if you were like serving a plate and your heel is what's on the plate. Okay, and just leave it there. Leave it there. And is there a way that you can organize yourself, your back, your head, your pelvis, to allow this position of the hand to be more comfortable? So just leave the hand there and explore. Maybe change your shape a little. You could bring your head down. You could take your head up and feel, is there a way to make this position more comfortable for yourself? And because we will have a range of ability, for some people, this is going to be so simple. And for others, this is complicated. So just really, I encourage you to kind of feel for yourself what's relevant of my instructions. Good. And then with your right hand underneath your right heel, with your left hand, grab round the front of the foot, the right foot. So you're kind of using your hand and you're scooping up the bottom edge, the outside edge of your right foot. So now you've got your right hand underneath the heel and your left hand scooped round the outside edge of the right foot. Okay. And again, see if you can find a comfortable way for you to be in that position. Like, what do you need to change in yourself in terms of your head, your ribs, your chest, your stomach, your pelvis? Is there any way that you could make that more comfortable? Good. And then really gently rock a little back on your pelvis. No problem. Good. As you rock a little back on your pelvis, does your foot lift? Or does it stay on the floor? Can you allow your foot to lift a little as you rock back on your pelvis? So your hands are kind of supporting your foot, keeping your foot safe. Imagine that you're keeping your foot safe with your two hands. And the position is quite important. So I'd encourage you to have the palm of the right hand underneath the right heel and the left hand round the outside edge of the right foot. I don't have a foot model to show you, but if you're confused, maybe you could come to the screen and look at a few other people. That might be a way of knowing more what I mean. And as you do that, as you rock back on your pelvis and you lift your right foot, what do you do with your left foot? Is your left foot hindering the process or supporting the process? Good. And then just let go of that. Take a little rest in sitting. If the computer is not too far away for you, I'd like you to use the raise hands function to let me know if you found that movement challenging. If you didn't, you don't need to do anything. You could just stick your thumbs up. I'll probably see it as well. That's another option. Okay, good. So let's have a little rest. This is really in the spirit of not rushing. So lie down on your back. And as you lie down on your back, you'll obviously come to meet the floor again. And if that was a challenging movement for yourself, maybe you can notice if there's any kind of residual effects that you feel in yourself. Or even if it wasn't a challenge, do you notice that just that kind of process of holding the foot and very gently rocking on the pelvis, has it made a difference between your right leg and your left leg in your sense of yourself? Bring your attention back to your breathing. Notice where in your body you feel the movement of your breath. And each time we do something, if we find it challenging, there are opportunities that we can find to come back to a more balanced state in ourselves. And then when we come out again and we explore, we can be exploring from that more balanced state. And this is kind of an important message. So we don't have to continue with something if it feels difficult. We can pause and we can regulate ourselves. And then once we're regulated, we can come back to it. So with that said, I'd like you to roll to sitting again. Good. Take hold of your foot in the way that I described. So the right hand is underneath your right heel, like you're serving your right heel on a plate. Your left hand is scooping round the outside edge of your right foot. So it's kind of like you're holding the little toe side of the right foot. And then begin to gently lift the foot away from the floor. Begin to gently lift the foot away from the floor and see if you can straighten it a little and bring it a little towards your head as you do that. So instantly, and it's such a pleasure to see, I've got some people that interpret the word a little by bringing the foot behind their head. So, you know, I think what's really good to recognize is that we all have different situations. And for some people, it might be really easy as they lift the foot just to fling it back behind them and like it touch the back of their head or whatever. For others, it might be a real challenge to lift the foot. So keep hold of the foot in exactly the same way. Yeah. Begin to lift the foot towards the face a little, bring it towards you and take it back down. And see if you can make this a circular movement. Again. So. I'm just going to look through the screen. So I'd like you just to repeat that movement a few times. And I'm going to look through the screens and see if I can see anything that I can say that might help people that are struggling. One person I can see initially, the position of the hands, they both need to be in between the legs. So not one to the outside of the left leg. And if you can move your left leg into a position slightly out to the side, that would allow you to lift your right foot a little easier. So kind of get your left leg out of the way of your right foot, out of the way of your right foot and out of the way of your hands. Good. And can you feel for yourself as you do that movement? Did you stop breathing? You can, of course, rock back on your pelvis as you do that. You can, of course, do less if it's uncomfortable. But what do you feel the kind of the range you have, the comfortable range of taking your foot away from the floor towards the face and bringing it back down? If you imagine the ability of a baby and they could just sit with their foot in their hand and like, you know, maybe they've got their foot in their mouth at some point, or they're like playing with their ear with their foot. And what's the difference in terms of a baby's organization to an adult's organization? Like, why would it be easy for them and more challenging for us? Good. Have a little rest in sitting. So put your right heel down and just rest in sitting. And take a moment as you rest to close your eyes and feel down the length of your back. Feel down from your head, through your back, through the right side, through the left side of your back. And do you sense any connection down through your head, through your back, into your legs? Can you feel the kind of connectedness? Does sitting in this position kind of cause you to feel a strain or a pull in your legs or in your back or in your head? And could you change your position in some way to make yourself more comfortable? So whatever you need to do to make yourself feel more comfortable, I encourage you to do it. I'm going to give you some options. See if you can take your head a tiny bit towards the floor. And notice as you take your head a tiny bit towards the floor, that in some way your spine or your back is allowed to curve. And just do it a little bit, a small amount. And notice as you take your head towards the floor, which part of your head did you lead with? Can you feel for yourself that I gave a relatively general instruction, take your head towards the floor, but each of you would have made a choice as to what that means for yourself. So it could have meant take the top of your head to the floor. Or it could have meant take the jaw towards the floor. It could have meant take one of your ears towards the floor. Or your nose. Or your tongue. Good. Take hold of your right foot again, please. Begin to lift your right foot in the air and see if you can start to take your head in the direction of your foot as you take your foot in the direction of your head. And please, 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 please don't push it. Really stay in a comfortable range. Just to explain as you continue that movement, and just do it a few times, go through a few repetitions, looking for your sense of comfort, looking for a continuity of breathing. As you lift your foot, take it towards the head, taking your head a little towards the foot at the same time. And just to explain the difference between if we do something with more effort and we activate our stretch reflex, what that's going to do is in some way encourage the system to want to do it less. So like anytime you feel a degree of strain as you do the movement, back off it a little and do a little less. And if you can stay within the comfortable range of the movement, you're giving your nervous system and your brain an opportunity to learn about it, develop new pathways, and your ability will change naturally. You know, often we think that we need to kind of impose change using our mind or ideas. I really encourage you to like, just for this workshop or going forward, just throw that out of the window a little and see if you can feel for yourself that if you stay in comfort as you do it, that the change can actually, or you can improve faster. Good. And as you take your foot away from the floor, as you take your head towards your foot, do you breathe in or do you breathe out? What would make the most sense? As you take your foot away from the floor and you take your head towards your foot, would it make more sense for you to breathe out or more sense for you to breathe in? One of my favorite descriptions that Moshe Feldenkrais used to describe this process, exploring the breath in different movements, is if you think about a balloon, and a balloon as it's full of, you can take a pause for a moment, take a breath. But if you think about a balloon, if you wanted to fold a balloon, if you wanted to change the shape of the balloon, kind of fold it in on itself, would it be easier when the balloon is full of air, or would it be easier when the balloon is empty of air? So if you think about your own chest like a balloon, as you breathe in, you fill that balloon. And as you're taking your foot towards your head, in some way, you're trying to fold yourself. So if you've got this kind of big balloon's worth of air in your chest, it's actually going to be more difficult for you to bring your head towards your foot and your foot towards your head. So see if you can breathe out as you do that movement Allow the front of your chest to fold, allow your spine to be involved in the movement, and see if that makes the process easier. I'm encouraged to see that people are resting when they need to. Good. Okay. And please roll onto your back and take a rest. I can hear the sort of if I'm imagining what you guys are feeling, there's a sense of like, but I thought this was meant to be a playful workshop. Why is it so difficult? And I mean, like I said, it might not be difficult for some people, but it might be really difficult for people. And what I want to do is really introduce this idea of playfulness as a pathway to how you come into contact with challenges. So it's not just to do with feeling playful and everything is good. It's also that how we approach things we feel difficult has a direct impact on kind of how we relate to them. So playfulness as a philosophy to help you deal with or kind of meet some of the challenges that you experience. Good. So as you come and lie on your back, just feel again the support of the floor. I introduced the concept of safety right at the beginning of the lesson. And in terms of the kind of the movements that we've been doing, maybe some of them feel challenging, maybe some of them feel easy. But when you're lying on your back, you're really encouraged to let go of some of the effort that you've been making. So can you feel the sense of safety that the floor provides? And as you begin to feel that sense of safety, as you adjust to the floor, can you notice any change in your breathing? Do the muscles of your abdomen change or as you breathe, do they change? The way, the speed of the breath change? Or whether the breath is high in the body or low in the body? And just maybe for a moment, think of that idea of the balloon. That with the in-breath, you've kind of got that full balloon that's less foldable. And with the out-breath, you've got that less full balloon that's more foldable. Good. Very gently lift your right heel. And put it down. And notice, as you lift your right heel, how does it feel? Does it feel different from when you first tried that movement? What's happened with the right heel? Or the process of lifting the right heel? And as you do it, can you notice, do you breathe in or do you breathe out? Good. Contrast that, rest the left heel and lift your left heel. And how does that feel in comparison with your right heel? What's the difference on the right side to the left side? Bring both of your legs to standing. So your feet to standing, your knees bent. Have them roughly shoulder width apart. Separate your knees out to the side. Interlace your hands behind your head. Lift your head at the same time as you lift your right heel. So for those that didn't hear, have the knees a little spread so they're out to the side a little. Yeah. Lift the head at the same time as lifting the heel. And it can be a really small movement. Doesn't need to be a big movement. Yeah, and notice like what's the process, how coordinated now is the lifting of the right heel and the head? Do they feel like they're more part of one movement, or are you doing two separate things at two ends of the body? Take a rest with the right heel and try the same thing on the left side. Lifting the left heel a little away from the floor, and notice what's the difference on the left side than the right side. Does it feel different to you? And again, do you breathe in or do you breathe out as you do that movement? Good. And rest. And take a moment not to think about anything. One of the things that I wanted to introduce today was a difference between abstract learning and intuitive learning. So abstract, just to explain the difference between the two, abstract learning would be more based on concepts and the building of concepts. And intuitive learning would be more based on how you feel. So if you come out of the abstract learning and come into the intuitive learning experience, what do you notice about how you feel? In that less solid state in yourself, what are the sensations that arise? What parts of you are more present than others? Where is your attention? Good. When you're ready, I'd like you to roll to your side again and come to sitting. Take your right hand underneath your right heel. Take the outside edge of your right foot with your left hand. Lift your right foot and leg a little in the air and begin to make a small movement of taking your leg a little to the left and a little to the right. Almost like your foot is a baby and you're gently rocking it a little to the left and a little to the right. And notice how far does it go? If you stay within your comfortable range, is the movement very much kind of centered in front of you? Or is there a way for you to begin to turn yourself a little more to the right and a little more to the left? Do you hold your breath as you do that? Good. See if you can take your leg out to the right a little further and go in the direction of taking your right knee towards the floor. So there's a couple of ways this can happen. One of them might be that you tilt over and kind of like topple onto your right knee. I'd like you to not do that. Instead, see if you can allow your left knee to lift as you turn a little to the right. Left knee to lift as you turn a little to the right, and also look to the right at the same time. So this is kind of one of those moments where it's, you know, I'm going to need to wait to kind of collect everyone. I'm going to need to be a good shepherd in this moment and wait for everyone to get this. So as you take your leg to the right, position your left leg in such a way so it's kind of out in front of you but bent, that you could allow your left knee to lift more away from the floor, allowing your body to turn to the right so that you could bring the right knee towards the floor as you look towards the right. So you're going to need to turn your body. Good. So someone has got it. Alison Stokes, would you mind if I spotlight you for a moment? Is that okay? Thank you so much. All right, so just everyone watch. Alison has got her right leg and she's taking her foot to the right, and she's suddenly got all the way over to the right so that the right knee is on the floor. Okay, so now she's got her right leg again. She's going a little left and a little right, and she's going to the right. Look at what her left leg is doing and how she's come with the right knee to the floor. Okay, thank you so much, Alison. That's really helpful. So I don't know if I need to spotlight myself again after doing that. Can everyone see me okay? Yeah, good. So take a little rest. Let's take a rest. Maybe you could think for yourself into that process. Take a rest and lie on your back. And just think, you know, as you lie on your back, think about the movement that I was suggesting and feel for yourself what was the difference between the movement that you were making and the movement that you saw Alison make. How far away does that movement feel to you? Does it feel something that you could possibly do, or does it feel a long way away? Good. And when you're ready, please roll to sitting again. It's a very short rest. Take hold of your foot in the same way. Lift your foot and your leg in the air. Have your left leg in a position that allows you to lift the left knee as you turn your body to the right. As you turn your body to the right. Good. I've seen someone else that's able to do it after doing that little demonstration, so I'm glad about that. So as you turn your body, this is the moment where it's really good for me to remind you that it's okay to get it wrong. It's okay for this not to be a smooth process. It's okay for you to be within the learning process. So Wendy's just messaged that she has to leave. Yeah, it's no problem. That's no problem. And yes, there will be. So as you turn to the right, and you allow your left knee to lift away from the floor, can you bring your right knee to touch the floor? And does it kind of come down in a bit of a thump? Does it like onto the floor, or is it a smooth process that allows you to very gently lower the right knee onto the floor and then bring it back away? So come back to the left. Maybe you even fall over as you do that. Yeah, Joyce, I understand. Yeah, just take a rest if you need to. Yeah, good. So can you make that process light and playful? Taking your left knee a little to the right, bringing the right knee down to the floor, and then lifting it back off and taking your whole right leg a little to the left. So almost like you're swinging your right leg between these two places. Good. If you want some encouragement, you could always go to gallery view and have a look at what other people are doing, because sometimes it's quite fun. Yeah, good. Okay. And just before you lie on your back and take a rest, just come back to that first position, lift your right foot away from the floor, take it towards your head, take your head towards your foot, and notice what's the difference in that process. As you lift your foot away from the floor and you take your head towards the foot, has that become easier? Is there a different sense of possibility now at this point in the lesson than there was when you started? And as you take your foot towards your head, how close does your foot get to your head? Has it become more of a possibility that they might touch at some point? And then lie down on your back and rest. So, of course, this is a lesson from the Feldenkrais method. And this is one of the lessons that Moshe is very confident about its ability to make changes for the person that does it. And he said within a class of 50 people, by the end of the lesson, 90% would be able to do that movement in such a way that their foot is in some way contact with their head. And I think that's quite a bold statement, but he was pretty confident about it. So it's food for thought. And if that feels very far away for you, I really would stick to what I said at the beginning of the lesson, that there really isn't any sense of rush. There's no reason, there's no logical reason that bringing your foot to your head is a good thing. So it's really, that's not the point. That's not the point. Good. If you like, when you lie on your back, you could very gently just lift your right heel a couple of times and then compare it with lifting your left heel. And how does that feel? Good. And rest. And can you feel that when you were doing that lifting of the foot or the heel, that there was some difference in your back? Your back is beginning to respond in a way to that movement that in some way allows that movement to become more possible and easier. Good. And fully rest, fully rest. As you fully rest, check in with yourself. Feel whether you feel more playful or less playful. If you feel less playful, then I would encourage you to back off the effort a little, to like come back into a sense of doing less, noticing your breathing, finding a way to do the movement that feels comfortable to you and safe. Good. Very gently, just roll your head on the floor. Roll your head a little to the left and a little to the right. And just notice the freedom of your head in this moment. And once you've done that a couple of times, bring your head to rest and notice the freedom of your breath. As you breathe in and breathe out. Good. And just take a moment to really enjoy the rest. Again, kind of falling back on that principle that there isn't any rush. We're not trying to get anywhere. The process of learning is something that's kind of very natural and very intrinsic to us. You know, it's a part of us, whether we want it to be or not. Which is why we can make good habits as well as bad habits. So when we come away from that idea that everything has to be perfect and that if we don't do it correctly, we aren't getting the most out of it, and we allow ourselves to explore and to play and to get it wrong, in some way we're following a very natural learning process. And if you think back to your childhood, or just in general how children learn, there isn't that sense of structure to learning. It's very free. Great. When you're ready, I'd like you to roll to your side and come to sitting. And this time I'd like you to go into side sitting. So the right leg is going to be out to your right with the knee on the floor. And the left foot is going to be behind you in some kind of organization. The left foot is going to be behind you and the left knee is going to be on the floor as well. Yeah. So this is side sitting. Take hold of your right foot again in the same way. So the right foot is in front of you, the right foot's on the floor. And you've got your right palm underneath your right heel, and you've got the left hand taking the right foot from the outside edge. The right knee is on the floor. If that's, yeah, so that's better. I'm just going to give you direct instruction. So that's side sitting in the other, if you can, so that's it, exactly that. That's it. And then with the right hand, take under the heel. Yeah, and the left hand take round the edge. That's it. There you go. Good. All right. And then very gently begin to take your head towards your knee. Begin to take your head towards your knee and then take it away and just explore. Taking your head towards your knee. And which part of your head did you choose to take towards your knee? Some of you I can see have chosen their right ear. Is there a benefit of being able to listen to the right knee? Could you hear some sounds coming from the speaker of your knee? What about if you took your nose towards your knee? Does your knee smell? A friend of mine yesterday told me that he was at a cafe and a dog licked his knee. And he made a joke that, I mean, I don't know if it's appropriate. Maybe it's not appropriate. I'm going to stay PC. He made a joke about it, basically. And then afterwards, as I was talking to him, he was like, and he was trying this lesson, he relayed to me that maybe his knee smells of the dog. Good. What I'd like you to do is, as you take your head towards your knee, leave your head as close to your knee as possible. Take your head a little to the left so that you begin to explore along the length of the shin. And again, what part of the head are you taking along the shin? Perhaps you could be taking your forehead, or the next time you do it, you could be taking your chin. You could try taking your right ear along the length of your shin and back to your knee. You could even try taking your left ear if you feel adventurous. Good. The last one I'd like you to try is taking your mouth along the length of your right shin. And see if you can kind of imagine that you're using your mouth to map out the shin. Yeah, and it's okay, like, it doesn't matter how close or how far you are away from your knee at this point. Some of you, it will be very easy. You could touch your mouth to your right knee. And then what I'd like you to do in that position is take your mouth a little towards the outside of the right knee, towards the outside of the right knee. And does that in some way give you a route towards taking your head down towards the floor? See if you could roll onto your back. See if you could roll onto your back at that point. Just to give a direct instruction. Yeah, okay, good, good, really good. Yeah. So this is it could be a spatial problem as well. You might need to organize yourself in your space so that it's comfortable or safe for you to take your head in the direction of the floor. As you roll onto your back, can you keep your foot in your hand? Keep connected with your foot. And is it possible for you to roll back onto your right side, onto your right knee, taking your head as close to the knee as possible and come back up to side sitting? If it isn't possible for you to come back up to side sitting from that position, just come back up to side sitting however you can and do that same movement again, taking the head down towards the right knee, allowing the kind of mouth or the nose to go towards the right knee, explore around the outside edge of it. And see if you can do it in such a way that you don't come and thud down onto the floor, that this is a reversible movement, that there isn't a point at any stage where you like lose balance a little bit and you fall backwards. Can you make this process as safe as possible? Good. All right. And have a little rest. Have a little rest. In fact, have a long rest. Good. So someone's put in the chat, it's amazing. I used my whole back to lift my foot the first time I did it, tightness everywhere, and now it's easy. So I wonder for the rest of you, if you were to try lifting your right foot now, how would lifting your right foot feel? You're lying on your back. And contrast it with your left foot. Can you feel the difference between the two? Hopefully it should be more obvious now. Good. One last time, roll to your side, come to sitting, come to that side sitting position. Take your right foot with your right palm underneath your right heel. Take your left hand around the outside edge of the right foot. Begin to take your head down towards your right knee again. And take it really slowly. Take it really slowly. Move your mouth a little to the left of the knee towards the shin, and then move your mouth a little to the right of the knee, and see if there's a way, there's a trajectory that you can find for your head that takes your head towards the floor in an arc, so that you never at any point fall. It's a smooth arcing rotation of the head in space. Again, see if you can keep breathing as you do it. If you can roll onto your back at that point. Let your right foot come into the air. And then take your right foot over to the left. Take your right foot over to the left while you're lying on your back. Can you touch the right toes on the floor to the left of you? Could you make a little circle on the floor with your toes to the left of you on the floor? Like you're drawing a little picture. So you need to roll all the way to your left. Take your toes towards the floor. Good. And then roll back to the right. Roll back to the right and come up to side sitting. So think about the trajectory of the head. The head is the most important part of this movement. If you can allow your head to be free and safe and playful even, this will be a really easy process. If the head gets tight at any point in the movement, it becomes more difficult. Good. So anyone that didn't get a chance to roll onto their back and explore touching the right foot onto the left side, I would encourage you to try it. Highlight someone, please. Okay, I can do that. Let's see. Bethan, would it be okay if I highlight you for a moment? Yeah? Great, thank you. So if you look at the screen, Bethan's head is safe, is comfortably rolling on the floor. She rolls to the left and the right toes come into contact with the floor. She's making a little drawing with the right toes on the floor. And then the arc of the head along the shin as she comes back up to side sitting. That's beautifully done. Thank you. And you can feel really as she's doing the movement, there's a sense of ease in how she's organizing her head. There isn't a point where she's kind of holding her breath or making any extra effort. It's really smooth. Thank you. It's lovely. Okay, and lie on your back and take a rest, everyone. Lisa, I don't know if you're here still. Let's see. Yeah. So what we're going to do, we're going to actually swap over onto the other side after this, but we can actually do it in the imagination now. So what I'd suggest, or like Lisa's put in the chat, that she has a tear in her right knee, and this is quite difficult for her. And many of us will have similar issues. Some part of us that we find is too challenging to overcome in this particular movement, that basically takes all of our attention and doesn't allow us to drop into that sense of safety that we kind of need to find in order to allow the head to be free. So for anyone that is the case, what we're going to do now is a really good route to exploring how you can find safety without going into the full movement. So we're going to kind of move into exploring in the imagination now. So as you lie there on your back, just, take a moment to think about how it was that you organized that movement in yourself. And I don't mean in comparison with someone else. I mean in your own internal sense of the movement. What did it feel like? Did it feel smooth? Did it feel easy? Or did it kind of produce a tightening response? Did it reduce some sense that you're not safe? And this is something that in the learning process we want to avoid. If we think about that in terms of the brain's ability to learn, or specifically to learn new habits, one of the things that we really want is the frontal cortex to be switched on. And if there's any sense that we're not safe, the frontal cortex will switch off to a certain degree, and the activity will be more based in the amygdala, which is more like the emotional center of the brain. So the frontal cortex is more to do with kind of building or finding relationships, making differentiation, finding patterns, problem solving. And we want that to be switched on when we learn. So learning in a safe, gentle way is really a productive approach. Okay, so what I'd like you to do just for a moment is to roll over, come to sitting and come to standing. And as you come to standing, just take a moment to stand on your feet, maybe off your mat if possible. And just feel the length of yourself. Feel the length of yourself. And if there's any difference between the length of you or your internal feeling of the length of the right side of your body versus the length of the left side of your body. You might even notice a difference in how you're holding yourself on one side to the other. Or if you were to gently lift one foot away from the floor and then the other foot away from the floor, what's the experience? Is there any obvious effect of the lesson in that movement? And then take a little walk, take a tiny moment to walk around and just sort of let go of the lesson. Good. And then we're going to come back and we're going to do the other side of the movement, but we're going to approach it through the imagination. But because it's a 2-hour workshop, I'd like to offer you guys a little break. I'm going to come back in 5 minutes. Just if anyone needs to use the toilet or they need a drink, please, now is a good moment to do that. So just a tiny little pause and I will see you back in 5 minutes. In that 5 minutes, if anyone has a question or they want to ask me anything, I am here. I'm not going anywhere. Please do.
Joe.
Yes.
I've got a problem in my right side joint. So
okay.
Like Donna Farr, he always says don't do asymmetrical movements. So this one like really freed up my right hip, seemingly. But when we went back to the lying and I was trying to open the left side, I felt a twinge of pain in my right.
So which part of the movement, sorry? I didn't catch that.
When I went into rest, so lying on the back, but I moved my left leg. I tried to move my left hip out. Yeah, then I felt.
Can you show me?
This. Yes, I'm trying to root here. It's starting to hurt on the SI.
On the right side. Okay. Yeah. So can you lie on your back again?
Sure.
And have both legs on the floor. Both feet on the floor, sorry. So bend your knees. Yeah, I can highlight.
Let's see.
Bear with me, sorry. Someone's asked if I can highlight you. Is that okay?
Sure.
So if you just roll to your right side and allow your right knee to come towards the floor.
That's the right knee.
Yeah. Can you allow then your left knee to come towards the floor as well? Yeah. And turn your body a little more to the right. Turn the whole of your body, that's it. And then come back and go back onto your back and see if you can kind of find a smoothness of rolling to your side, the right knee coming towards the floor and the left knee coming towards the floor at the same time. The knees are separated, so then they're not together. So yeah, come back to on your back, separate the feet a little. Yeah. Take the left knee towards the floor.
Left knee.
Yeah. And the right knee, both. Allow your body to turn to the right. Yeah. So what you're trying to do in some way is kind of have the movement so it's a unified experience, that it's not separate parts of you doing different things, that in some way more of you is encouraged to be involved. Does that produce the same pain that you get?
No.
Okay, so then can you come up to sitting and try the same thing in sitting? Yeah, so just come to side sitting.
Yeah, so it hurts going on to my right. Oh. Yeah, I can't.
As you roll like that to your right, it hurts. Okay, so if you go to side sitting at that point.
With the left leg.
Behind you, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, does that hurt?
Yeah, and this one, nothing.
So that doesn't hurt at all?
No.
Okay, and then can you hold your right foot? And the way that we've been doing the whole lesson, yeah. And then just take your head down towards the floor. Look towards your knee. Take your head down towards the right knee. Yeah. And then as you begin to roll onto your back, allow your left knee to lift. As you begin to roll onto your back, allow your left knee to lift, yeah. And then stop mid-process, roll back onto your right and take your right knee towards the floor. And come back up to side sitting. Does that trigger the pain?
No.
So then really it's to do with how much the knee is coming along with the process. So see if you can kind of feel that they're not separating out and doing different things. That as at any point as you're doing the movement, that the left knee is coming along with the process. It's not separating out. Because I think in some, oh yeah, go ahead, please.
Sorry, it's more in the SI going to, I don't know if it's a piriformis or sciatica, but that's where the shooting pain was going. But
did it happen just as you did that last little bit of it?
No, it only happened when it's lying on my back.
Yeah.
And I lift the hip, and then now I can't push up from the right because I think I'm hitting it from the right side.
Yeah. So then exactly what I'm saying. So allow the rolling movement. Think about the trajectory of your head, the movement, the rolling movement of the chest to do the majority of the work, so that there's a lot less being done down here.
All right.
This is really like a smooth arc of the head. Yeah. And then allow the head to be the thing that brings you onto your back. Good. Let it open up. Perfect. And then come back, and then come back to the right, but let the head be the guide of the movement. Yeah, that's it. That's it. There you go.
Much better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. A while ago it was a torquing of my
exactly. Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I got that. Nice. Thank you.
No problem.
Much different. Yeah, much different even the feeling sitting now.
Good. So other people had some questions. Let's see. So someone said that they've experienced this lesson many years ago and they really struggled, but they're enjoying it today, which is great to hear. Again, the benefits of approaching things playfully. Okay, someone said, I thought I would like to experience in the imagination. I would like to move my left side. Is that okay? Of course, completely okay. When I give the instruction, you can do the movement. It's really interesting if you try the first few movements in your imagination and then go into the movement. I'm going to encourage everyone to do most of it in the imagination, but if you want to do some of the movements, do the first couple of repetitions in your imagination. Ben has asked, is there a name for this lesson? Yes, this is lesson 8 from Moshe Feldenkrais's ATM book. Very classic lesson. Thank you, Erna. That's very nice of you to say. Can be out of alignment. Yeah, I think I'm going to kind of stay away from the anatomy stuff, Kel. Thank you, though. That's useful. I think that in some way, the blanket statement of Feldenkrais is that if we can encourage more of ourselves to be active in the lesson, it reduces less individual particular strains. So I think I'll just stick with that for now, but thank you. I appreciate that. Elaine said that she has knee problems, so taking it very easy. I am super happy to hear that. Rachel said that her right side feels about 5 inches longer than her left. I wonder if other people have that experience. Okay. So if everyone is ready and back, maybe you could just give me a thumbs up if people are ready. Good. So please lie on your back. That's great. Okay. So as you lie on your back, just notice the difference between your left side and your right side. And can you feel for yourself if there is any noticeable difference? Is that same difference noticeable in the two sides of your breathing? So is there any difference in the way that you're breathing on the right side of your chest and abdomen? And the left side of the chest and abdomen? So Lisa's asked a question about the right knee. I would come back to my answer about effort, especially if we've had an injury. I mean, it's like I described, I don't know if you were there at the beginning of the lesson, the story of the bird that had been injured. It's like that, you know, we've got to be so safe. We've got to feel safe, especially in any injured area, for that injured area to be reappropriated into the normal sense of ourselves. And that takes time. It's not straight away. So if you can approach that area of yourself with a gentleness, maybe even a compassion, that can, I don't know, in some way kind of soften up the process. Because the knee was injured for a reason, right? There was some organization or something, or maybe it was an accident. But, you know, the effect, it's like you've got two aspects. You've got the injury itself, and then you've got the trauma related to the injury and the holding around the knee. And you've kind of got to be smart enough to look at both of them. So that's a very specific response, but hopefully that's useful, Lisa. Great. Okay. So for the rest of you that are lying on your back, just bring your legs to standing. Bring your feet to standing. And spread your knees apart. Interlace your hands and put them behind your head. And now just imagine, don't do, imagine lifting your head at the same time as lifting your left heel. Thank you for explaining. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Lisa, maybe we could talk about it afterwards. I mean, I have a lot to say. I, have a lot to say about knees because I had some issues with mine. So if you want to talk about it afterwards, I'd be really willing. Yeah. So in your imagination, begin to lift your left heel away from the floor at the same time as lifting your head. And in your imagination, can you feel if there's any coordination, any sense of coordination between the imaginary lifting of your head and the imaginary lifting of your heel? In some way, can you imagine them being so in sync that they are really the same or part of the same movement, not two separate things? And at the same time, you can imagine doing that movement of lifting the left heel and lifting the head. You could also actually breathe out as you imagine the movement. So think about this image of the balloon again. Allow the air to come out of the balloon as you breathe out. And in your imagination, lift the head and the left heel at the same time. And really see if you can find a coordination of those two things. neurologically, the connection between our head and our foot is very closely linked and related to balance. But in terms of coordination in this movement, and you may have experienced this the first time you did it on the right side, they might not be very well coordinated. There might be a kind of a jerky movement between the two, or they're not, it's not very smooth. But in your imagination, you can make it as smooth as you want. You could make this image of the movement as perfect as it could be, because you're not actually introducing any effort. The only thing that you're doing is sending a message to your system to coordinate these two parts of yourself. Good. Good. Let your arms down, let your legs down, take a rest from all that strenuous imagination. And just because Lisa mentioned it, if there's any part of you that you feel some strain or some discomfort, just take a moment to really see if you can, I don't know, bring your attention to that area in a way that's compassionate to it. Bring your attention to that area in a way that's kind of kind and supportive. Good. And then when you're ready, I'd like you to come to sitting. Come to sitting with crossed legs. Please have your left leg in front of your right leg. Take your left hand with the palm side up. Take hold of, or put the hand underneath your left heel. So we're doing the same thing that we did on the other side, but the opposite side now. The left hand, the left palm is underneath the left heel, and the right hand is round the front of the left foot, round the outside edge of the left foot. Now close your eyes. Close your eyes and just begin to imagine rocking a little backwards. Begin to imagine rocking a little backwards. And notice in your imagination how comfortably, how easily does your leg lift away from the floor in your imagination. And imagining something brings with it its own set of challenges. I would encourage you just to really to think of it in this way that I was talking about, the difference between abstract learning and intuitive learning. And the way that you imagine this process now is really using the intuitive learning method, which is just kind of thinking through how the movement would feel. In each part of you that's involved, your head, your back, your leg, your arms, your stomach, your breathing. Like, how would those parts of you feel as you rocked a little backwards and lifted your left leg in your imagination? Good. And then take a rest in sitting. Take a rest in sitting. You can let go of your leg. Breathe for a moment. And notice the length of your back. The length of your back and the length of your legs. And feel into yourself in that way. And when you're ready, please take hold of the left foot again. Physically take hold of the left foot. The left palm is underneath the left heel. Left palm is underneath the left heel. Not the right heel, not doing the right leg anymore. Yeah, left palm underneath the left heel, right hand round the outside edge of the left foot, and then begin to imagine taking the head towards the foot as you take the foot towards the head. Just imagine it. Just imagine it. So Joyce, if you can have your right hand round the outside edge, yeah, underneath, that's it. And just as you imagine the movement, what are all the elements that are involved? Could you, as you imagine it, could you think about what your chest would have to do? What trajectory your head would have to take? Like how your head would move through space in order to bring your left leg closer to it. How your left foot would need to move through space in order to bring your head closer to your head. And again, can you utilize your out breath? Can you actually breathe out as you imagine taking your head towards your foot? Thanks, Grace. I have seen your message. Maybe afterwards we can talk about it if you stick around after the workshop. Good. And roll onto your back and take a rest. As you rest on your back, feel the length of the right side of your body. How far in distance is it from the top of your head on the right side to the bottom or the sole of the foot? Sorry, left side. Talking about the top of the head on the left side, down through the left side of the back to the sole of the left foot. What's the distance between those two places? How long do you feel on that side? In your imagination, just lift your left heel away from the floor. You've done it enough times on the right side and the left that you know exactly how your body needs to move in order for you to do this movement. But can you imagine it in as much clarity, as much detail, almost in high definition, as the actual movement that you did when you did the actual movement? What are all the parts that would need to be involved? Good. When you're ready, please roll to your side and come to sitting again. Take hold of your left foot in the same way that we were doing. Lift your left foot in the air in your imagination and begin to take your left foot a little to the left and a little to the right, just in your imagination. We did this on the right side. We did this on the right side. So you're lifting your left foot in the air in your imagination, and you're taking your left foot a little to the left and a little to the right. And see if you can allow your body to begin to turn to the left in such a way that the right knee would lift away from the floor. Again, just in your imagination. Can you feel, even if you do it in your imagination, that you can get a sense that there would need to be some shift of weight on your pelvis towards the left sitting bone? And again, can you notice your breathing as you imagine this? Can you feel if there's any, as you imagine the movement, if there's any tension or holding in your head and your neck? Is your head free? Could you turn your head a little to the left and a little to the right as you imagine doing this movement? Actually turn your head. In reality, imagine doing the movement of the leg left and right in your imagination. Good. Move your position so that you come to side sitting. Take your left leg to the left of you. Have your left knee out in front of you. Have your right knee on the floor and your right foot behind you. So you're in side sitting to the other side. I'll say that again. The left knee is on the floor, out to the left of you. The left knee is on the floor to the left of you. The right knee is also on the floor, but the right foot is pointing behind you. And Joyce, the other side. That's it. That's the point though. It's okay to get this stuff wrong. Like even in my description, it's natural. I'm going to say sometimes the left when I mean the right. Can't avoid that. Good. Take hold of your left foot in the same way. Good. And imagine taking your head down towards your left knee. Imagine taking your head down towards your left knee. And each time you imagine taking your head down towards your left knee, no problem. Each time you take your head down, see if you can imagine taking a different part of your head. So one time maybe you come down with the forehead. The next time maybe you come down with the right eye or the left eye, or the right cheek or the left cheek, or the chin. Yeah, there'll be a recording. I've got this recorded. So. And then imagine taking left hand under the left ankle. Yes. Yeah. Left hand under the left ankle, and you're inside sitting. And then you're imagining your head coming down towards your left knee. And then imagine the process of taking your head a little to the right, and the left, a little to the right and the left, so that you're sliding your head kind of along the left shin. If you want, you can take your head in that direction a little more than it is, and imagine moving left and right, a little to the left and a little to the right. Notice if you can do that in such a way that doesn't disturb your breathing. Good. And then imagine all the process, taking the head a little more towards the outside of the left knee, a little more towards the outside of the left knee, so that the head comes towards the floor and safely allows you to come down towards your back. So the head down towards the floor and allows you to roll onto your back. And this may be so abstract at this point that it's difficult to follow, but if you can, use the kind of feeling sense just to kind of how you would organize your body to do this using your imagination. Good. Good. And then roll onto your back. Actually roll onto your back. If you can, keep hold of your left foot. Stay on your back for a moment and imagine rolling a little to the left and a little to the right. Keeping hold of your left foot. Actually keeping hold of your left foot. Imagine rolling a little to the left and a little to the right. And can you keep breathing as you do this? Can you make this a smooth, continuous movement? Can it remain playful even as you imagine it? Could you take your left foot over to the right so that your toes touch down onto the floor on the right side of you in your imagination? And then could you roll to your right in such a way that your right knee would come towards the floor, giving you a pathway to come back up to sitting? But just imagine it, don't do it. And feel as you imagine rolling a little to the left and a little to the right. What's the trajectory of the head? And how free is the head? Is there any tightness in your neck? Is your breathing soft? How about your eyes? Are your eyes soft? If you like, begin to do a small amount of the movement. Go a little to the left and a little to the right, but keep that sense of freedom of the head and the neck. Very gentle. Do less, make it smaller, slower. By doing it smaller and by going slower, the thing that we're doing is providing a much greater degree of feedback to our brain. If we rush through the movement, if we don't take our time, in some way we're hoping that we might get some improvement. But it's not really the best way of the brain learning. Good. Come back up to sitting. Side sitting, left knee to the left. Left knee to the left. Get hold of your left foot with your left palm underneath your left heel. Right hand round the front edge of the left foot. And very gently take your head down towards your knee and roll onto your back. Actually do it. As you roll onto your back, come onto your back, take your left foot over to the right, touch your left foot onto the floor, and then come back to your left. Let the left knee touch down onto the floor and roll up to side sitting. Take your head in a really nice soft arc. Yeah. Come up to side sitting, great. And then back down onto your back and just play with it. Like, how free can you make your head in this process? How soft can you make your abdomen, your chest? Can it just feel like a really lovely flowing movement of your head from one side to the other? Good. Okay, the next time you lie on your back, Take a moment to rest. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, I'm kind of at the limit of my time. Just lie on your back and rest. And just feel the length of yourself now when lying. Can you feel any difference now between the left side and the right side? Or has the difference kind of equaled out? Do you feel an equivalent length along the right side of you from the head down to the foot as on the left side? And how is your breathing? And your sense of safety as you lie on your back? So just to wrap up the kind of the lesson part, in some way when we approach challenges, what seemingly feel like challenges when we start off, if we approach them in a way that allows us to learn, those challenges can become a lot less challenging. So that's the note that I would like to finish on in terms of the instruction. But I would like you to slowly transition from sitting to standing and feel yourself in standing for a moment before we speak. And in standing, what's the sense of length you have in your body right now? How tall do you feel, in other words? And how do you feel the relationship is between your head and your feet? Do you feel a sense of safety in standing? If you were to move your weight a little to the left and a little to the right, how responsive are your feet now? Does your head feel free over both feet? Good. And then take a moment just to walk around your space, just to kind of integrate and to feel.